Joining us right now via Zoom chat is Father Frank Pavone from Priests for Life. Good morning to you, Father.
Good morning. How you doing today?
Praise be to God, I am alive. That counts. How are you?
Yes, likewise. And very, very happy in these days, of course, because of this tremendous victory that the pro-life movement has been working and praying for 50 years.
Amen to that. Let me just say this. Yesterday, I saw a video published by the Babylon Bee. It was a mock presser of the devil, sort of answering questions from the press about, how he's feeling now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned. And I was laughing because it was, well-crafted comedy. But at the same time, I felt pretty guilty about laughing because it hits very close to home. It's actually very sad to realize how many people have fought vigorously in order to make sure babies can't survive the womb.
Yes, we have to put. I always say we have to get abortion out of the abstract, and this is not just a difference of ideas. There are people who are apostles of abortion, vigorously pushing, concretely planning and acting in such a way that there would be more abortions more easily. It's a lust for death, and that only comes from the devil. It's a lust for death. It's born out of despair, and we see it unfortunately going on in the actions in Congress of the Democrats keep trying to push this most radical abortion bill that's ever been seen in Congress. They're not going to get it passed, and especially not after these upcoming elections. But I mean, why would they even want that? And yet we see it right before our eyes.
Yeah, it is mind-boggling. Look at the response to this. Now, I will say, I thought this response was going to be worse than it's been, but it's not been easy. It's just not been as bad as I thought it was going to be.
That's true.
What are your thoughts on the response from the hard left on Roe?
Well, the response indicates, first of all, that they're not interested in the democratic process, or they choose not to understand it. Because, look, the Dobbs decision does not take a policy position on abortion. The Dobbs decision says, look, we made a mistake at the Supreme Court when we took sides in Roe and in Casey. And the way we took sides in the abortion debate was that we told the people they could not protect their unborn babies up until viability, at least. But now we're not going to take sides anymore because the policy arguments are strong on both sides. The court said we 9 unelected justices are not equipped to resolve this issue for the American people. We have 50 states. States are different one from another in their values. We are going to back away from abortion policymaking, and we're going to leave it to the legislators and the people who elect them. Now, if the other side understood that, and if they also believed their own rhetoric that most of the people are with them, then they would just relax and say to their people, hey, folks, don't worry. We've got this. Just go to your legislators and make and I put this in quotations, make the persuasive case, okay, about why we should be able to dismember and decapitate babies. And then we're going to be okay. Because look, New Jersey, Colorado recently passed really extreme abortion laws. We've got New York, California, and many other states. And we'll just keep doing this. But you see, they don't do that because they don't believe their own rhetoric, because they don't have a persuasive case, and because they don't care about the will of the people. They just care about their own will, their own agenda, that they want the Supreme Court to keep imposing on us, just like they've done for the last 50 years.
Well, okay, so what about all of this talk and rhetoric about stacking the court now? I mean, they're facing a midterm election, and even the left, the news on the left is saying it's not going to be a good turnout for the Democrats, and still they're talking about stacking the court. Is that a real threat, or is this just rhetoric?
No, it's rhetoric because this has been tried before. It met with strong opposition even under Biden when he had a committee look into this. Because you know why it meets opposition from the American people? It's not really primarily a reflection of ideology. It's a reflection of the fact that the American people do believe in having an impartial judiciary. If a Democrat-controlled Congress and White House were to expand the number of justices on the court and put their own kind of people in there, Well, then Republicans could do so again when they're in power. And now what has the Supreme Court become? It has become simply another political branch of government. Amy Coney Barrett said it best when she was sworn in. She said, look, a senator, a congressman, they've got to get out there and let us know their policy positions. They've got to advocate for those policy positions. It's on that they're going to get elected. But a Supreme Court justice has to studiously do the opposite, has to put their policy positions into the realm of irrelevance. That's why they wear black robes. And they've got to judge according to the Constitution and the laws that are already written. And to stack the court, now all of us, then you don't need the court. Then you might as well just let the Congress decide, because it's just an extension of the political makeup of Congress and the White House.
Perhaps that's what they want. Perhaps that's their goal.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's right, because they want to. They want to do that. They want to just control with political power the ability to push their ideology. But you notice they want to do it through the court because they're unaccountable. The great thing about the Dobbs case is, you think about it. Now it's putting it in the hands of the elected representatives. Well, we elect them. We can unelect them. We can lobby them. We can sit face to face and persuade them. You can't do that with a Supreme Court justice. So the inaccessibility, if you will, of the Supreme Court makes the American people feel they're not in control of the policies under which they and their families have to live. What Dobbs has done, and our fellow citizens need to understand this, it's put the power back in the hands of the people. And the reason that the left doesn't want that is because they know that the people don't support their radical policies.
Were you at all surprised with Chief Justice Roberts siding with the outcome here?
Well, not with his support of the upholding of the Mississippi law, because we thought that he would do that, and he did. You could, in the oral arguments of the court, he was expressing a pretty strong support for the idea that, hey, 15 weeks, you know what, that's long enough for a person to so-called choose. But then, of course, as you know, he did not agree with the other 5 in actually reversing Roe and Casey. He's very, very much of the notion that the court should not do any more than it absolutely has to do to resolve a case. But there's a strong argument to say, it really had to do that to resolve this, because, if you say, well, right to abortion still stands, but we're going to uphold a law at 15 weeks, well, then very, very soon the court would have a case asking about, what about 12 weeks? What about 6 weeks? And the other justices said, you know what? It's time for the court to get out of the abortion policy business and let the people resolve it. So, no, Justice Roberts pretty much did what I expected him to do.
Now, Justice Clarence Thomas sort of opened up the box here a little bit, the Pandora's box. Yeah. He's like, well, if this law was based on bad, faulty judgment, well, there's others that we should readdress, to include Obergefell, even a case on contraception. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, we have to make 2 distinctions here. First of all, the court was very clear, even in Roe and Casey, and Dobbs highlighted it, that the reason why this reversal does not affect those other positions, which some call rights, is because abortion is a unique act. The court has acknowledged it's inherently different from rights about whom you're going to marry, or whether you use contraception, or whether how you educate your children, because it's only abortion that involves the purposeful ending of a life. So it's the ending of that second life that makes this in a unique category. Now, what Justice Thomas is saying is that the so-called right to abortion came about under this substantive due process, as it's called. 14th Amendment, you can't deprive a person of life, liberty, property without due process. So, and the court has said over the years, it's not just process. There are certain rights you have substantively that are in that amendment. And Justice Thomas doesn't like that idea. He says, look, if a right is not clearly in the Constitution or clearly in our history of American legal tradition, well, then stop making up rights under substantive due process. He was the only one that said this in this case. I've actually talked to him about this personally. And but somebody puts something in a minority opinion, in a concurring opinion, as he did here, and a future court could pick that up. I think constitutionally, it's worth examining more closely what is this substantive due process and how far does it go? Because that's where, a person can look at liberty, and Dobbs' decision warns about this. The majority warns about this. If you start interpreting liberty whatever way you want and you don't root it in the history of the country, the risk is the same risk we were talking about before, that it's the policy preferences of the justices that prevail rather than the will of the American people. So I just think it's something that we need to carefully look at in future cases.
Now, I just, from a personal perspective, how do you feel? I mean, all of these decades, blood, sweat, and tears. So many in the pro-life cause have put in decades of blood, sweat, and tears. And here you are. Does it feel surreal?
Yes, exactly. I'm pinching myself. It's like I was 1976 when I got involved in the pro-life movement. I went to the 3rd annual March for Life.
Wow.
And years and years and years of saying Roe v. Wade has got to go, And now we realize, oh my goodness, it's gone. It puts a lot of obligation on us all. It's not. People have to be careful not to think, okay, well, the pro-life movement has reached its goal. No, actually, our work has to intensify now, but we are delighted at this victory. But the reason it intensifies is precisely, as we've been explaining, that the Supreme Court now has opened up a big door. It's taken a big roadblock out of the road. And now the work we've always done, and we'll continue doing very much the same work, of passing pro-life legislation, now it's actually going to take effect instead of being struck down by courts. So it's time to work even harder. It's time for us to get to know our state legislators face to face, and let's push the protection of the unborn and their moms and their families further than we ever have before. I feel exultant, and I feel grateful, by the way, for all those leaders and activists who've gone on before us. We think of Nellie Bernard Nathanson, whom I knew, Jane Roe of Roe v. Wade, whom I led into the Catholic Church, so many activists, known and unknown, on whose shoulders we stand and whose work now we're privileged to advance.
So not much is changing at Priests for Life then?
No, it's really not. And people have to understand that. I mean, we've been helping people find alternatives to abortion. That continues. Helping people heal from abortion. That continues. Educating people about the unborn. That goes on just as it did before. And making pro-life laws and electing pro-life candidates, important midterm coming up, all of that is the same.
Amen.
Our work gets easier now because, again, it'll have its effect.
All right. Praise be to God. Father Frank Pavone from Priests for Life, thank you for your time today. God bless you and God love you. We're going to go to a break. We're going to be right back. We have more breaking news and stories. Rudy Carlos and Dr. Jeanson and his book, Linked, What DNA Has to Tell Us About Our Origins. That's coming up right after this break.